Welcome to Arcade Couch, the best place to chill with your friends and get your gaming goodness each and every Monday. My name's Don Blunt. Join me on the couch this week, Ashley Hobley.
Hey Dylan, excited to be here for Arcade Couch LCD edition.
Why is it an LCD edition?
I don't know. That was the only other one.
You could have just said it's an OLED.
Wow, why didn't you go with CRT?
But I mean, you could have just said
funnier.
OLED, and like it would have fit the joke still because people could be watching it on there.
No, you want to do it backwards. I understand the need to go backwards, but I would have said CRT to just imagine having like a Switch with like just that big chunky like dumpy ass on it. Like that would be
big old chunky ass, says Kira March at also joined us this week.
Oi, what's going on, everybody? I've missed the show lately, so I'm glad to be back on this very busy week of lots of gaming news and plenty to talk about.
You missed all the busiest weeks. I'm sorry.
I fucking did.
Was there anything you wanted to dispute that you've heard?
Not that I can think about. Nothing comes to mind. No. Look, other than just just other than like the constant Ashley Hobliness, just his general
what you're talking about.
General presence on the show and his besmirchment of the Xbox Game Pass name, and somehow converting Buddy Watson to be the same. It's just disgusting. It's just horrible.
I can't help it that Buddy has also seen the light.
I don't think it's light though. I don't think so.
It is most definitely the dark. I'm sorry. Today on the show, we know which direction Assassin's Creed franchise is headed now, and we learn about GTA 6, and it's still some time away. But first, let's get into, the biggest news story of the week, I think, for sure. Come on. Nintendo Switch. Nintendo officially revealed what we were long talking about to be the Pro Edition, or what we thought was going to be called Nintendo Switch Pro or something like that. It is officially titled Nintendo Switch OLED model. It'll launch October 8th. That's the same day as Metroid Dread. It'll cost $539.95 Australian. Before I get everyone's opinions, let's lay out the features because there's not that many to cover. It is, in case you couldn't tell from the title, an OLED screen. It is a little bit larger at 7 inches, so it's 0.8 inches larger than the base Switch. And it'll come with a more adjustable stand on the back, so you can lean it forward or back more. It's not just that one position. It comes with a new dock, which has a LAN port built into it now. You don't have to buy an adapter that plugs into the USB switch. It has improved speakers. That, of course, is just for handheld mode. And it'll include 64 gigabytes of internal storage. It comes in 2 colors, a white and black version where the dock is all white, or the blue and red, which we've already had, of course, for the current model where the dock is black on that one. So, Ash, you've been giving me a lot of funny looks as I was reading all this out.
Just funny sexual innuendo.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Is it the word dock?
It's bigger. It's more adjustable. It docks in a LAN port.
I wasn't trying to be sexual, but that's fine. How do you?
What about adjustability is innuendo? I'm confused, but
just searching for it at this point. I feel you need to calm down over there. What are your thoughts on the reveal of the Nintendo Switch OLED model, Ash?
Oh man,
because the internet's very mixed, or mostly negative, I'd say.
I think it once again, it's purely on the fans, like overhyping what this was going to potentially be, expecting it to be 4K, expecting it to be super powerful, expecting it to compete with the PS5 and Xbox Series X. It was just going to be another Switch. Like, they gave it exactly what they needed to give it: better screen, better battery life, bigger storage, a little bit bigger.
To clarify, it doesn't have better battery life.
It will better than the original Switch.
So it will have slightly better battery life because the OLED uses less power than the other screens. And this one will use they did a slight upgrade that we talked about, I think, a year ago, where they started pushing out these new Switch models that had better battery life, and of course this will have that. So yeah.
Yes. So technically, correct. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. If you're someone who bought a Switch day one, maybe it's worth the upgrade. If you haven't bought a Switch at all, this is probably a good time to jump in. This is clearly aimed at people who play the console purely in handheld mode. Yeah, it's a small iteration from a company that does small iterations a lot.
Mm-hmm. Kieran?
Look, if this was any company other than Nintendo, I would say something along the lines of they've completely dropped the spaghetti here. But it's Nintendo. They do what the fuck they want. They don't really care. This is, just another example of games media and the gaming community getting worked up and getting hyped up for something that was never really a possibility. To think, when we look back on Nintendo's history, I think when we had this discussion when the news initially popped up about the potential for a 4K version of the Switch, is like, well, look how long it took Nintendo to get into HD. Like, they're just really, that kind of stuff is just really not important to them. I think this model kind of capitalizes on something that I think a lot of Nintendo Switch owners do if they are more of the handheld Switch user. I think it doesn't exactly affect you too much if you just plan on using the Switch in the dock mode, other than the Ethernet adapter, Ethernet port being in the dock for once, and the dock itself being slightly improved. But other than that, this is the unit for people who want to use the Switch while in handheld mode, which honestly is probably the greatest strength of the Switch in general. Even though it's being sold as a home console and Nintendo has always advertised it that way, the Switch is fantastic as a portable handheld console. It's really good. Like, to have the level and quality of games you do get on a handheld is fantastic. They do really well. OLEDs are fantastic, and it's a good feature. Everybody kind of shines more of a light on the Vita, being like the Vita might have just been before its time in many ways. But it's a good upgrade if you have an original Switch and you use it in handheld mode a lot. Upgrade to this. If you don't use your Switch in handheld and you only use it plugged into a dock, I don't think there's much of a point really to upgrade to this version. It is disappointing for Nintendo fans possibly that they're not getting performance upgrade or anything, which means still boggles my mind that a game like Breath of the Wild runs so well on the Switch and within its boundaries, and that there is some kind of merit to a company and developers that work within those limitations. It's just not every company is going to work within those limitations if they don't have to.
So I've pre-ordered one, so that's out of the way.
Well, you use yours handheld a lot more than you
primarily. I'd say I've used it. Yeah, I use it primarily handheld. But yeah, it's definitely not if you just want a handheld, the Lite's still probably the better option because it's just a lot cheaper, especially if you're buying one brand new. But I still feel, because when we was discussing the Pro, we were always like, yeah, 4K sounds great. I'll be surprised. But I feel like the thing we were often talking about is just some slight upgrades would be good enough as a increase. And the 4K thing was always like, that sounds the wildest, but if that's real, fuck yeah, I can't wait. But it always just seemed highly unlikely. And also, just because I've seen this whole thing of, we got lied to online, all the leakers were wrong, all this sort of stuff. Not necessarily. A lot of that information, so all those leaks, pretty much, so everything apart from the 4K turned out to be true. So who's to say that the 4K is just not just the Nintendo Switch 2, and that's just what they're going to be working on for a year or two from now? They're just going to do Nintendo Switch 2 does 4K, or 3 years from now. I don't really know. But also, to what you're saying, surprise, surprise, Nintendo, a company that literally put out a brand new Game Boy, a brand new 3DS every year, has decided to do the same model for this. I think people are just finding it weirder because it is a hybrid console where a lot of people just view it as a home console machine and they only play it docked, while other people view it as a handheld. Some people, like myself, use it both. So I don't really view it either way. It's just, to me, it is a hybrid, the one of its kind hybrid console that does both. but it is still a handheld, and Nintendo's history of handhelds is literally from the very first Game Boy. And they were like, you know what would be better than the Game Boy? Let's put some color in it. And there's a new one. And then, and always, there was always just like sliding.
And it wasn't even like.
Let's do a micro one now, motherfuckers. Like, what was that?
It's even like the Game Boy, and then there's the Game Boy Advanced, and then there was the Game Boy Advance SP.
Yeah, and a lot of people, kids who never knew about the original GBA, only ever had SPs that the parents brought them or whatever. If they saw an original GBA when they got older or something and never realized that the GBA SP, they probably didn't even realize that was a iteration. It wasn't even the first one. Like, it's so weird to think that there was a GBA, which was a whatever shape, I guess, like rectangle-ish type shape console.
Yeah.
And then
rectangular hexagon.
Yeah, and then they turned it into a flip screen console. Like, so it's not really surprising that Nintendo is releasing an iteration. I don't think I've seen these people doing the whole, buddy, they're trying to steal all the money, blah blah blah. It's not worth it. Okay, well, don't buy it.
Yeah,
like fucking, don't buy it. Also, as to that, anytime something gets announced and people say, "Oh, a company's trying to take all my money," that's literally the whole MO. That's literally what they want to do.
It's always just, this is just general consumerism as a thing, but like, it's always interesting when people complain about companies not always working in the consumer's interest, but in their own interest. It's like, what the fuck do you think they're doing? What do you want about?
They're all about making money. That's literally why
they want to make money,
doing business. And as I've seen people point out online, rightfully so, Nintendo is games. Sony has other things. Xbox has Microsoft. They have other revenue streams. Nintendo puts out iterations of their consoles as a way to keep making money, because literally all they make is video game consoles and games. That's where all their money comes from. They don't have backups. This is how they roll. So if they can make more money on these slight iterations and people want to buy them, it's fine. I don't think it's particularly overpriced. If you're someone who doesn't know how much OLED screens cost, like you go walk into a store, look at a price difference between an OLED screen and a LCD screen, or whatever, it's fucking $2,000 difference, some of them. So OLEDs are always more expensive. People complain when the Vita came out because people reckon the console would have been $300 cheaper without the OLED in the first one. Maybe. But everyone loves that console because it had the OLED screen from the launch and stuff like that. So, yeah, I wouldn't say this is for everyone. I'm all about it because I had an original Vita and I love that screen. Still the best handheld gaming console ever. Tech-wise, maybe not game library. You could, then you're hard arguing with the GBA or something. But I think tech-wise, the PS Vita is the best handheld console ever put out. And a large part of that is just how good that screen was. And it never got fucked. It never didn't scratch ears. You never got dirty, like great battery life and all that sort of stuff. So I'm all for a slightly bigger screen, but noticeable. It's nearly a full inch. I think that's and that makes a difference, as the ladies say. Yeah, I had this. Yeah, yep. I had to say that one else. I knew you would just.
It was too easy.
Yeah. So nearly a full extra inch, and that's going to make a big difference. Improved speakers. Who gives a fuck about? I really like the white look, the white and black look. I actually really like the way the console looks, and the LAN port being built in. I'm actually keen for that because I keep always considering buying the stupid Bluetooth thing, especially, and we'll talk a bit about Mario Golf a bit later. But when we were streaming, Mario Golf the other week, I kept having this stupid connection issue ping pop up every now and then because it's just running through Wi-Fi and it just gets shitty connection and all that. So I kept that night, obviously before this console was announced, I kept thinking like, if I need to buy that fucking dicky ass USB port adapter thing because I was gonna buy it because it was just pissed me off, but it's like $30-$40 or whatever. And I was like, fucking, but I was gonna
that's a big that now you're saving $50.
Yeah, it's true.
Or $40. So now it's only a $50 difference.
That's true. And
between a current one and a new one.
The stand thing isn't mind blowing, but I have as I've taken those switch to hotels at times, I have brought like one of those $30 stands that's more adjustable. It has like the thing at the back so you can adjust the lean of the Switch more. And having this built into the console, you don't really, obviously that kind of defeats the purpose of that as well. So they're all little things. It's not like, oh, this is an upgrade for everyone. It's mainly the screen and the size and the adapter and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I think it's fine. It's not what everyone wanted. It's fine. I still think we will get a much improved Switch. It's just not going to be an iteration. It'll be Nintendo Switch 2 or whatever they end up calling the Switch 2. Like if the Game Boy went to Game Boy Advance, Nintendo Switch Advance, like it'll be that. Wii U.
Nintendo Switch Advance. That'll be fun.
Nintendo Switch U. I don't fucking know. Yeah.
Do you reckon they would just do a version without just a home console version of the Switch? No screen?
I don't think so. I think if they remove the portability of the console or like the variability of the console, I think they lose a lot of what makes that console special.
But I'm sure there's a certain segment of the audience that would only play it at home.
Yeah, it just defeats the name.
You could sell it at like a quarter of the price, maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not.
But why does Nintendo want to sell something for cheaper? Like honestly,
because it would be cheaper to produce.
I mean, the Nintendo Switch Lite's obviously done well because they keep putting out different colors, but they would also probably, I presume, have stats because they do research and stuff, and they probably have the stats to say that they don't need a dock console only version. They must have some stats that say the Lite was worth it. We've got a bunch of kids and whatever grabbing these, families grabbing these for the kids while keeping theirs for themselves, the adults. And would those people, or do we need a docked-only one? Like, I'm sure they do surveys and market research and this sort of stuff, big companies. So, anyway, that's the Switch.
I will say, last thing, really good-looking box.
Yeah, I like how it's different shape and everything.
Actually, I do
really good
appreciate
packaging.
the box.
Yeah. Do appreciate some good packaging, don't we, Ash?
Yeah, absolutely.
Dylan doesn't packages. Because the moment he gets it home, it's like torn and shredded to pieces.
I don't tear my package to shreds. How dare you?
I'm also sure. Although
excuse you,
he doesn't rip his package. He just tugs it a bit.
It just comes apart.
Just blows all over the place.
Okay, then.
Also, I'm sure all these accessory places are super excited to be able to sell you a brand new bag or cover for your new, slightly larger Switch. Okay.
All right, getting into some news. Not much to cover this week other than the Switch, obviously. Just a couple of stories. Let's start with the news that ESL Australia and TUG Live making the announcement over social media that Australian Esports event Melbourne Esports Open 2021 is no longer happening, citing, quote, tumultuous 12 months. The event was hoping to come back this year with a ticket refund process now in place. So just an update on that in case you've missed it and you was excited. Hopefully this doesn't affect PAX in October. We can still
I feel like it does though, right? I feel like this is writing on the wall.
No, well, this was scheduled for 21st and 22nd for August.
Yeah.
So
there's 2 months difference.
There's another month and a bit between. I think it is purely PAX. It has more backing and is more willing to take the hit if anything goes wrong. Melbourne Esports Open doesn't have the
I don't know if it's getting to the point where like it's getting to the point in Australia where if shit doesn't get fixed like soon, I feel like it would be irresponsible to let an event like PAX go ahead.
Well, if we block off Sydney, New South Wales, and
cut the border.
Would you mean like every other state that have all got problems at the moment? Because
everywhere else is going to have it fixed within the month because they're all sensible and know what to do. Sydney have been left free range for the last 18 months,
I know. It's just a case of, I don't know. I just think it's having that packed an event which is going to bring people from every single state to Victoria sounds like a fucking terrible idea at this point in time.
It's hard to judge.
Hopefully,
it's still several months away.
It's just still, several months away. I'm sure they've had other events that are not gaming related that have flown a bunch of people in the last couple of months.
You know what's annoying me? it's connected, but side tangent. So America was so much worse off than us for so long, and we were doing a better job here of keeping it down. But they've just obviously got out way more vaccines while we've only. I hear about two people a day.
They make them there, so
yeah, I hear about 2 people a day get them here. Is what I last heard. So they're like already back to wrestling events live, whatever the fuck else is going on, or people are doing concerts and stuff where they're like, if you've got the vaccine, then you come. If you haven't, you whatever, and they got like full vaccinated people or whatever. Wouldn't it be great if the vaccine was just easier to get here, and PAX or wherever else could be like vaccinated in you come,
think so.
no
I think
vaccinated,
so, and
fuck off.
I'm lucky enough to be vaccinated,
So you can go to PAX.
I could go to PAX if it was.
So you feel
on.
fine about going to PAX yourself?
Like me myself, yeah, I don't care. I'm good. But when I'm talking about how irresponsible it is in general. I think it's especially when you look at PAX where the medium age for PAX is going to be in between 20s to mid 30s. Those are the people that are struggling to get vaccines at the moment in Australia because of just the age for the vaccine that's being applied.
Right.
It is. I think it's everybody over 50 at the moment.
Yeah. What do we do? What do we say? So I was looking at pictures this morning. I can't remember where it was, but there's some event on in China, and PlayStation was there, and they had a booth and everything like that. I was looking at pictures of it, and everyone in line had masks on. Everyone walking around the event center had masks on. Like, how would we ever feel if, so shit settles down a little bit over the next 3 to 4 weeks?
I still think even if
you're required to wear a mask at PAX.
I think you have to anyway. Even if
I would be shocked if
down,
that wasn't the case.
But would you? But I mean,
like,
if we had to, would you still come, or would you be like, no, I don't want to wear a mask?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, wearing a mask is. I guess for me,
I think we all work in retail where we have to wear masks for several hours during the day, during these lockdowns and stuff. So I don't think there's much of an issue.
And I think it's just
Except,
it would be.
Kieran doesn't.
Yeah, no, but it'd be dumb to. It'd be really dumb not to have masks as a need requirement for PAX, no matter how well the pandemic's going by that time.
Inside the building, and then even if Melbourne at the time's okay, and they're like, if you're outside, you don't have to wear it, but if you're inside the building, you have to wear a mask.
Especially inside the building, and especially like inside the theaters watching something, I think that's all kind of. It would be way more appropriate to be wearing.
Then
masks.
they can sell mask covers over the top that these weirdos can stick all their pins on.
Fucking accent way.
Or they could just provide. They could just
provide everyone with PAX masks.
PAX masks. Yeah. Just provide PAX masks. Make it cool to
wear masks.
To wear a mask.
Just let us shame all the people.
I don't know. I would really hate it if something like PAX was like the center of something really bad happening, like a big kind of COVID outbreak or something.
Look, obviously, I don't want it to happen if it's unsafe, but I also think if everything's okay and they feel like, look, nothing's bad at the moment, but maybe if we still run it, just make sure everyone wears masks just in case. I'll be like, all right, well, as long as, because if we talked about a month ago, everything was fine. Like it's only in the last couple of weeks that shit's flared back up in Australia. And I'm like, well, anything could happen in another same amount of time. Like shit changed so quickly. It could change so quickly again. I just really don't know. Play it date by date. So obviously I still want PAX to happen, but I was like, come on, everyone, get your fucking shit together. Like, what are we doing? Like, even today they were like, oh, someone fucking, there's all these sites here now that I had to check, have you been to this place? Because apparently someone went from Tassie to London or something like that and got COVID and they were here. So it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Come on.
It's a story that never ends.
Come on.
Thanks, Gomo.
Yeah, fucking. What a cunt. Press Start writes Grand Theft Auto 6 will apparently be set in a modern day Vice City with an evolving map. Several sources look to have revealed our first information about Grand Theft Auto 6. As expected, it's sounding as though the game won't release for another few years, with a 2024 or even 2025 release date likely. Including to insider Tom Henderson, the game will be set in a modern-day Vice City based on Miami, with the map to start out, quote, small at launch and evolving and expanding over time, similar to games such as Fortnite. It's said that this is largely due to Rockstar not wanting to crunch, and also the success of GTA Online, which has managed to keep players engaged by having an ever-changing map and events. Jason Schreier corroborated the reports and also added that 2023 was a realistic timeline for the game to release before the pandemic hit. Hence the 2024 release date and stuff now. So there's a lot more. I know there's always GTA rumors. I barely ever add them to show notes because they're usually just some motherfucker on Reddit. This one obviously is being reported on by some credible actual journalists who and stuff like that. So I thought I'd bring it up because I don't think we ever really talk about Grand Theft Auto on here because, as I said, usually gibberish stories. But Kieran, Vice City GTA 6, excite you or no?
He does. Vice City might have. It's really hard to say my favorite GTA between Vice City and San Andreas because I think both came out so kind of reasonably close to each other and they were both fantastic. But there was something about the setting and the aesthetic of Vice City that was amazing at the time. So to get a modern day kind of version of Vice City would be amazing. Even if they decided to go, instead of having a modern day version of a city, to go back to the 80s or something, or do something in a different time period of GTA to shake things up a little bit. I think Rockstar is still happy to take its time and do whatever it wants, not only in the sense of making the game better and bigger than ever, but also at the same time, it's got GTA Online and Red Dead Online, even though it doesn't do much for Red Dead Online really, to kind of keep it steady with money coming in, and GTA is always popping. GTA 5 is always popping on fucking PlayStation charts and best-selling games charts all the time. So, not now.
No, I said somehow. I don't know how, but somehow.
Somehow, right? I was going to say, I know he got bumped off for a bit. And
he got bumped off to like second or third, and then it came back. So,
yeah. So, I think Rockstar are going to take their time and do make this. I think it's great. I think people who are disappointed by that are, I don't know. I guess it's like, well, there is plenty of other stuff coming out. I don't think I care as much just because, I enjoy watching GTA RP on Twitch and stuff like that. So it's like I watch enough content based on GTA as it is without that being a new game. So it doesn't really stress me at all. So it'll be good to see it when it comes. But until then, I don't need to hear about it every year.
No. Well, you probably won't hear about it officially for quite some time. But
no, quite some time. Definitely not. No.
Ash, Vice City, GTA 6.
I never played Vice City, so I don't have a nostalgic feel for it. But
never played Vice City?
Yeah, I don't know.
The fuck?
Which of the PS2 ones have you played, if any?
I want to say 3 in San Andreas.
I was about to say, surely everyone's played in San Andreas. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I liked. Obviously, 5 is like the biggest game of all time, and they can take as much time as they want. We obviously know that they've had some changes behind the scenes. Their big head writer of pretty much all the games is left, so it makes sense that they would take their time with their next entry, which has a lot to live up to. I think that's the biggest thing. It's like maybe they're trepidatious about doing another GTA because how can they top GTA 5? The highest selling game of all time, I think, probably at this point. And obviously they've got the next gen versions about to come out, so I'm sure they're about to sell a bunch of hit the top of the charts for next gen copies. I Vice City could be cool. Obviously it's based on like Miami, right? Mm-hmm. Is the setting. So if you're setting in present day, it's like a bunch of old people, like retired, like baby boomers in their retirement, just taking advantage of all their money. Some guy over at Mar-a-Lago or something. So you can go take your fly your plane over there, where a certain orange person might be staying.
Oh dear. So I haven't played 5, obviously, and that's my continuing meme where that's the one I haven't played. But I've played every other GTA, and Vice City is my favorite Grand Theft Auto because it's heavily inspired by Scarface, and Scarface is one of my favorite movies of all time. And it's not really a spoiler at this stage. Come on, if you haven't played Vice City, you haven't played Vice City, but that game ends with pretty much the same. It pretty much just rips Scarface's ending beat for beat. You have a massive shootout inside your mansion home. It's built pretty much the same as the Scarface home. It's one of I remember playing it, and it was like one of the coolest things I ever played in a video game. And I also just love that city. I love that vibe. I remember playing it and just the Phil Collins part they had in this the Phil Collins mission where you go to his concert and they worked in his music. Like I fell in love with Phil Collins.
Vice City has the best soundtrack.
And yeah, like cuts between the car and like him actually playing the concert. It's actually Phil Collins in the game. I was like, oh no, that game is like one of the coolest video games I think I've played as a kid. Just had such a good soundtrack and such a cool vibe. On top of like the gangster shit, obviously that was part of it. But even the gangster stuff was more, yeah, it was like you're wearing a floral t-shirt and, you know, saying motherfuck cunt, you know, like, oh, you're swearing at people like you would any other one of these other games, but you're doing it in a floral shirt. Whereas some of the other ones, you're more suit and tie gangster, like Italians, typical Goodfellas type scenario. So I'm all about it. That's my favorite city, favorite time period. Let's go back. Let's just do it in the 70s. Let's fucking go. Don't need this shit. Did you ever play Vice City? Did you play Vice City Stories or Liberty City?
I never got to play either of the Stories games. I've heard that they were both very good.
Very good. Yeah.
I just did not get to play them.
Because that connects, Vice City Stories connects directly into the Vice City as well. Like connects. It wasn't a sub story. It was like a prequel, basically. So.
Oh, really?
Bam! Connecting characters and everything. Can't remember which one. It was like one of the main dude's side characters. His name was Tommy something, the main character. Can't remember his last name. Vassetti or something, I think.
Tommy Vinetti or something?
Yeah,
Vinetti?
There you go.
Or something like that.
Yeah, so I'm keen. Obviously, it's a few years off. Maybe by the time this comes out, maybe I'll play GTA 5 before this comes out. I've got some time. You know, there's no rush. As Ash just said, they're still putting out the next gen version. Maybe that's the one. I did buy it on PS3. I did buy it on PS4. If I buy it on PS5, it took me 3 generations or 3 releases.
No,
but
you're never going to play
it. I'll get there eventually. get there eventually. All right, Assassin's Creed. Let's talk about it. So I'm just going to read off their blog post, Ubisoft blog post, but this happened. In case you missed this whole story, basically Bloomberg, Jason Schreier wrote up a story about what they're about to say in their own words. And then instead of just bullshitting it and trying to cover it up and not talk about it for months and months and months or however long, Ubisoft just very swiftly, a couple hours after the Bloomberg report went up, ended up posting their own blog post, which clarified everything that Schreier had said and pretty much ticked all the boxes and tried to word it in a way that sounds a lot more positive, obviously. But yeah, we got confirmation of what the next Assassin's Creed game is, or maybe it's not the next one, but what the next major project is in direction for that franchise. So they have a bunch of bullshit out to start, but they say from its action and adventure origins to its RPG evolution, Assassin's Creed has shown how the decisions we make now, no matter how big or small, can influence events of the future. After both Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Assassin's Creed Valhalla shattered records, we find ourselves in that very moment where we know the decisions we're making for the franchise now will impact its future for years to come. Along with our announcement of new content coming for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, sidebar, of course, we did talk about that a couple of weeks ago, where it was, I did say, surprise, surprise, they announced that they're doing another year of content for Valhalla, the first Assassin's Creed game they've ever backed and done more content for in year 2. This is obviously a big part of the reason why. They continue, we wanted to share some key updates on the talented and creative minds that will be working in a collaborative cross-studio structure between Ubisoft Montreal and Ubisoft Quebec that will guide, grow, evolve, and define the overall future of Assassin's Creed. That includes an important upcoming early in development project codenamed Assassin's Creed Infinity. The new cross-studio collaborative structure will be led by Mark Alexis Cody, who will serve as executive producer of Assassin's Creed franchise, one of the founding members of Ubisoft Quebec. Cody, I'm just saying Cody, it's probably horribly wrong, but that's what I'm going with. Began in Assassin's Creed, his Assassin's Creed career working on Assassin's Creed Brotherhood before becoming creative director on Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and most recently senior producer on Assassin's Creed Odyssey. He'll be joined by Ubisoft Montreal's Etienne Alanier, brand director of Assassin's Creed for the last 10 years, and their respective teams in ensuring that Assassin's Creed franchise continues to exceed the expectations of fans who have been asking for a more cohesive approach to its development over the past several years. Joint production efforts on Assassin's Creed Infinity will be headed up by Ubisoft's Montreal's Julien Lafari, who has been named senior producer overseeing production of both studios. The Fairy brings along extensive experience with the franchise, having worked on Assassin's Creed since 2007 before most recently become producer on Assassin's Creed Valhalla. There's a bunch of other studios from both teams I'm beginning to mention. Then they end up saying, this change means we're also evolving along with the video game industry. The pandemic and working from home have fundamentally changed the way we produce games, giving us a moment to reflect on our organization. Assassin's Creed was born within the walls of Ubisoft Montreal, and the studio built an incredible foundation for the franchise with immersive skill and creativity of its teams before Ubisoft Quebec then took the lead of Assassin's Creed Syndicate and Odyssey, demonstrating its ability to drive the franchise even further. Rather than continuing to pass the baton from game to game, we profoundly believe this is an opportunity for one of Ubisoft's most beloved franchises to evolve in a more integrated and collaborative manner that's less centered on studios and more focused on the talent and leadership, no matter where they are within Ubisoft. Most importantly, Assassin's Creed has already been developed with multicultural teams of various backgrounds and perspectives that have influenced the depiction of its characters, locations, and cultures. While we know there's always room for improvement, we believe this new structure will allow us to ensure that diversity and representation within our teams continues to grow and match that of our players. So the other thing Bloomberg covered, which was the fact that with their bigger team and the bigger studios working on it, they pitched it as a game that will grow over time, cover different time periods, potentially different characters, and to me sounds, they didn't, obviously the word games as service hasn't been thrown out, but it does sound like some sort of games as service type Assassin's Creed game where it'll be continually updated for at least several years. Now, games as service doesn't directly mean multiplayer. It just it doesn't directly mean multiplayer, but for the most part, it does mean multiplayer. But it does seem like they're wanting to build a big base for Assassin's Creed and then continue to build on that over years rather than be constantly working on completely separate projects. So, Kieran, what's your thought on all like the two major Assassin's Creed teams teaming up for this massive project instead of just working on separate?
I'm mixed. If it was to say, if this game would be as a platform would release with maybe like 3 settings with the same caliber of detail that we have for the normal games, maybe not to the extent of, you know, your Odyssey or your like the last 3 that have been absolutely massive in map size, but they have a decent city or environment to explore and everything. I think that's good. I think that'd be great. Assassin's Creed being a game for a service almost worries me about the story though, and what happens with that story and when it's going through. Is it going to try and make it 2 games for a service where it's like, decide, do you want to be an assassin or do you want to be a crusader? And you're still playing assassins in the history lines, but you're picking a side of what you're trying to do to help with that. Games for a service is such a mixed bag, and they're generally terrible when they first launch. And, you know, we always look at them and we go, yeah, this game's great now 12 months later, but when it came out, it sucked. So Ubisoft either have to be prepared to ride out a very rocky opening 6 months, most likely, or try and learn from the mistakes of others. I think we have so many games we can look at nowadays, like your Destiny 2, which is a more successful version of the games to a service kind of genre, but then you compare it to the recentest, one of the most recent Marvel Avengers or even Anthem that have fallen flat on their faces, kind of quite majority. You know, Marvel Avengers is now resorting to shirtless Captain America skins to kind of continue to bring eyes to their game.
And it's working.
I think the games for a service one is, I don't think anybody has truly found the recipe yet for it. Nobody has kind of, you know, nobody's had that moment of perfection right from the start where they go, this is the perfect games for a service game. This is what everybody is going to enjoy. This is how games for a service game should be done from now on. So there is that space there if Ubisoft decide they want to be the first people to try and do it properly. I'm going to reserve judgment on it. It's something that could be really good for Assassin's Creed, but at the same time, it could just be them placing a very kind of, I don't want to say beloved, but a very well-known and powerful franchise onto a games of service, and then kind of hoping that just the name of the franchise is going to carry the thing.
Ash?
yeah, this is obviously a bold choice. I honestly I don't know how they're going to do it. That like I'm open to whatever they're going to throw out there, but what is it going to be? Is it just going to be one massive world? Is it going to be a bunch of smaller worlds? Is it going to be multiple time periods? Is it going to be a multiplayer? Are you going to be able to customize the assassin? Is every assassin in the world going to be slightly different? This is a franchise that's been built kind of on single player on characters, like set specific characters. How does that translate to this kind of live service game? Unless it's a combination, like unless you have like kind of like Avengers, you have your clear single player mode, and then you have this other mode separate where you go running around with a bunch of friends murdering people. In
again,
Rome.
I don't know if they would do multiplayer because I mean it's hard to think of games as service not as multiplayer, but
if you don't have multiplayer, how are you making your money?
Capes, man. Every character has a cape.
But you only
$1 for each different color of cape. $1.
I think the majority of people want capes to show it off in multiplayer.
Yeah, probably.
Otherwise, they're pretty happy with whatever the base is.
Well,
the majority of players.
What fools they would be, you know. Like I'm saying, all the capes. I think it's so the announcement that they're just teaming up for one massive Assassin's Creed rather than trying to do the Activision Call of Duty model of interchanging studios to put one out every year, which after they announced Valhalla, we're like, oh, here we go again, you know, because obviously they took that break between Syndicate and Odyssey.
And Origins?
No.
Oh, yeah.
It's Syndicate and Origins.
Yeah, Syndicate and Odyssey. Yeah.
Odyssey. No, Origins.
Origins, yeah.
And then,
Origins,
and then when Odyssey and Valhalla, it's like, okay, well, we're back to the yearly thing, are we? But now they're like, oh no, that was just a thing. Obviously, they're trying out ideas and whatever, and they've decided to come together. We actually haven't had a game from such a massive Assassin's Creed studio. So, I mean, on paper, I think it's a good idea. It's like, instead of trying to push one out every year, why don't you just try and make an actually really good one? And I have no problem, of course, with a game being supported post-launch for a couple of years. As I was saying the other week, I think supporting Valhalla into a second year of content is a good idea because it's a massive game that I put like fucking 30 hours to, and I don't think I'm even halfway. So there's a lot of content there already. And it's if people have already finished it and they're wanting more, there's nothing wrong with supporting a game and making some money off DLC and proper expansions and not just loot boxes and, you know, the shady type of stuff we not particularly love, but, you know, proper expansions and DLC and these sorts of things. That's perfectly fine. So building a nice base game, possibly it would be great if they're like, well, here's 2 time periods. You can play them at the same time. You play them at different times. Maybe it's the same time period, very different games, different characters. They interweave. 2 studios work together to tell this cohesive narrative between 2 sides. More so than one studio could do. Very different mechanics even possibly. You know, like I feel like there's a lot of ideas that could come together between 2 teams teaming up with such a project. And then the games as service side, if that's a thing, and if it's got multiplayer. I liked Assassin's Creed multiplayer, to be honest. Like I actually played a bit of it in what it would have been, Brotherhood, Revolution. Yeah, I think that was the 2. And they had it in for a couple after or whatever. But I actually enjoyed Assassin's Creed multiplayer for what it was. It was pretty fun once you figured out what you're actually doing, you know, hiding in crowds and, you know, you'd see someone like standing around going, oh, there's no one here. And it says there is someone. You'd see someone like unblend with a crowd and just run awkwardly across the building and jump onto a house or something. You'd be like, well, that's definitely not an AI person, you know, like I don't know, there was kind of fun to that. So if they could even bring back some multiplayer stuff, I'm not even against it. Like some competitive multiplayer. I didn't mind those modes.
I mean, the closest thing we could potentially get is Grand Theft Auto 5. You have a clear campaign, and then you have a completely separate online
Assassin's Creed Online, EC Online.
Yes. Yeah.
Sure.
And whether that's just a single player, it could just be expansions, like paid expansions that you have to unlock every whatever.
Not against it.
And I don't think this is a surprise because obviously we've talked about in the past, Ubisoft has said they want to go with a lot of these kind of game for service
things.
Division going forward. Obviously, they've
Rainbow Six.
They've kind of fallen into this kind of by accident into this category of games with
They tried to make
Division,
Ghost Recon
Rainbow
Breakpoint something similar, but no one liked it.
Breakpoint. For Honor, it still has like a very small
Yeah.
audience that still loves it.
The Crew 2 apparently was fucking
The
good.
Crew 2 apparently is still
I think
being
all of them honestly have that core fan base that they kind of
obviously
thrive
their
on
next
and
game,
live off
Riders
of.
Republic, that just screams
Far
similar
Cry
kind
is
of
like
thing.
the only game. Maybe. Just dance.
Anthem died. Thing is, though,
Anthem's EA.
Anthem like was that bad in press wise and just general community feedback when it first came out that it just died. It was dead on arrival. Like it was just
Well, that's probably the only
there was no hope for it.
DOA,
Whereas
games of service there has been, I think, like of that level. So
yeah, no, that's fair. And I think Marvel Avengers is currently struggling. I think we will see how that goes in another 12 months if that's still
if they're still
actively
around in
being
12
worked
months.
on.
But
Yeah. I think even though
Wakanda's going to be.
depends
I think
Wakanda's
it relies
forever.
completely on that Wakanda content. You know, that'll be the big thing.
all right, let's talk about some video games, what we've been playing. Talk about Mario Golf again in a second. But firstly, I just want to go over, I've been playing some of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles for a preview. I was fucking super busy and I actually didn't get to write up a preview. Maybe I'll still do it. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'm fucked. I don't know.
Maybe this is it.
Maybe this is it. But I'll talk about what I can, obviously, from the preview build that I got my hands on. So this game, I didn't know much about until it was announced. I think it was only announced earlier this year or late last year. I can't remember when they announced it. It was like, I think it was earlier this year.
one of the Nintendo showcases.
So it's basically one of these scenarios where these games were only ever released in Japan. So obviously Ace Attorney, it's a spin-off of the Ace Attorney franchise where you play as like the descendant of Phoenix Wright. I cannot remember the main character's name because it's not as easy to remember as Phoenix Wright. It's like much harder name. It's set 1800s. You can find it out if you want. 1800s Japan. And it's set during roughly the period where a lot of British or the Britain Empire, whatever they were called. What were they called? The British Empire? The Britain Empire? I can't remember. The British Empire, that's what we're going with. They're having a lot of people visiting Japan at the time. And also they're getting into like this whole bringing in some more of that culture to the Japanese law system or justicial, I struggle with that word, procedural proceedings and stuff like that. So there's a lot of like sort of interesting history at play in this game, and I've been enjoying that. The core concept for the game, if you've ever played, I forgot what I was saying there for a second, but so it never came outside Japan. It did release on 3DS originally, and it was even ported to the iPhone and stuff, but never got any port outside Japan until now is the thing. But the core gameplay is an Ace Attorney game. So if you don't like those sorts of games, you're not going to like this, obviously. But it is that whole, it's a visual novel. You're doing a lot of reading. I mean, a fucking lot of reading, obviously. And then when you get into the court case, you'll listen to people talk for a while, and then it'll go into a segment where you hear someone's testimony and you can push them on certain things they say. And then if you find the right thing, you can counter it. You can like listen to what they say and go, well, that doesn't make sense because of reason. You open up a little menu, you click on the evidence why, and then you go objection. And that's the famous times for it. So, I mean, that's the game. So if you don't like these sort of games, then that's what it is. One thing I have been enjoying about this one, other than the setting, I'm really enjoying the setting. I think the 1800s Japan, like from a historical aspect, I've been enjoying what they're playing around with that. So like what I can talk about from the preview, the first case has this British woman come in who get involved as a witness to this murder. and like the other lawyer who's against you is doing lots of like, oh, my dear fair lady visiting from far away. Like it's all, it's very anime, obviously, and all this sort of stuff, but it's quite fun. And they're not, most visual novels, they do a lot of very, the characters will change like between like 3 poses and all this sort of stuff, and there's not much to it. Like it has a little bit of that, which all these games do, but there's also, they've added a little bit more slight animations, like subtle times the characters will just do like slight smiles and stuff that you may not notice at first, but there's enough here that it makes the game constantly feel alive, not just like these slight changing backgrounds that you're not really gonna notice much of. So I've been enjoying that. And I also think, so I played some of the original Ace Attorneys back on the DS, and I started playing through the trilogy when it came out on iPhone a couple of years back when they put it out on there as well. I brought it on that and started playing them. And the one thing about those games back when they originally ported them over is for some fucking dumbass reason, and it was always annoying, I don't know why they bothered trying to do it. They tried to, for the first 3, they tried to rewrite them in the translation. What's the word? What's it called when you, is it translation when you, like it's Japanese and then, is it translation? Yeah. I was not know if this is different. The translation, they tried to rewrite it and make it out like it was set in America, but it was clearly not. So it was very, very, very weird. So I'm so glad for this one, they didn't suddenly try and rework the whole setting into like make it America, because it feels more authentic. It feels like just a good translation of the source material, not some weird like, let's try and like, because it's now coming to a northern English speaking fucking side of the country, let's make it set in America and try and make that makes more sense for some stupid ass reason. So I'm glad this one sticks good. Translation's quite good. I haven't had any that word doesn't make sense, or like anything dicky like that happen so far. And as a visual novel, one thing that's much appreciated for these sorts of games now that the old ones don't have is it does have a button you can turn on. I think it's just called auto reader or something along those lines, where you can press a button, sit back with your controller, and you'll just, if it's just a bunch of text for a while, you just read, and you can pick your read speed. Like, and I think it's just the middle button on the DualSense that, like the big touch pad button, whatever we call that these days. I think it's that on PS5. So at times I click that, I'm just sitting there reading. And then other times where like I'm making lots of choices, I just click it off. So then I can click X through the text myself and change it. So I like how I can just switch between that, because a bunch of the old ones didn't have that, obviously. So that's good. So it's 2 games in the collection. The first one and the second one, I think they both have around 6 cases each or something like that. So I'm keen to play the full thing. More so than I was to replay. Remember they put out was that last year they put out the other ones on Switch?
I think it was year before last.
They all fucking
I bought them on PC.
Yeah. So I wasn't like super pumped, because I obviously, as I said, I'd played through those ones before, and I brought that when they brought it out on iPhone, and I was playing through them there as well. So I wasn't like super excited for this. Whereas this might as well be a brand new game, because it's never come out anywhere other than Japan, and I was more keen for this.
These games don't generally have much replayability to them,
because there's not really choice making.
Really love the story. But yeah, because you can't, there's no wrong choices. You have to make the right choice or you fail.
So yeah, I'm enjoying this. It also made me finally want to go, playing this made me really want to go watch that Netflix movie, which I haven't yet, the Ace Attorney one, even though I kept getting turned off because they make him do the ridiculous haircut or whatever. It looks like a stupid ass wig, but that is a thing that exists that I'm yet to watch, and this is making me want to do it now. So yeah. Have you ever tried out would these games ever interest you, Ash? Or are they not really
I mean, they've interested me, but I've never like pulled the trigger,
Fair.
Or entered the courtroom.
Yeah, entered the courtroom. Objection. Did you find that character name, by the way, of who's in the
I did. It is.
Try and say that.
Ryunsuke Naruhodo.
Yeah. Compared to Phoenix Wright. Like, it's not, I don't feel as bad for not remembering the main character's name in this one. So, I've enjoyed what I played, and that's my preview so far. Look for more, or if I publish a preview, which is highly doubtful, but look for my review in the future. Mario Golf Super Rush. Let's talk a little bit about that, because we played some more. In fact, we streamed some. What night was it? It doesn't matter.
A couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it was like a week ago.
That was
Tuesday, Wednesday night, something like that. Yeah, Tuesday night, I think. Yeah.
It wasn't Wednesday night.
Yeah.
We were too busy on Wednesday
Oh,
night.
that's right. Tuesday night, we streamed last Tuesday, obviously, not this Tuesday because that'd be the future. Last Tuesday, we streamed Mario Golf Super Rush, twitch.tv/Exposure Network. Thank you for joining us if you did. It was a fun old time for some of us, and for others, it was horrible. That's fine. Played with Buddy Watson from Radio Watson. Ash played as well. I played, and then Drew from House of Mario joined us as well. So we had a full 4-person squad going there by the end of the stream. I did not win a single fucking game. There was a few times I did get close to not coming horribly last, but I was still always last. That's fine. It's all about the journey, not the end goal. But Ash did end up walking away the major victor, which he already looks quite proud of himself. He got the 1-up on Buddy by the end only because he's a cheap piece of shit and picked the character that has the worst ultimate in the fucking game. So that's...
no, I was the only person in the game using the ultimate correctly.
Objection.
That was it.
I was gonna say the thing was I didn't get to catch much of the stream, but I catch clips, and there was the one clip Buddy put up where he's playing as the mayor of New Donk City from freaking Odyssey.
But he's decided that's just his wife, by the way. So we've just been calling that character Kim.
Okay,
so, yeah.
It looks like his wife. Yeah.
Kim. Okay. And it just like her ulti just got him a hole in one at one point, and I was like, man, what's the point?
You got 2
Like, she was
ultis
just-
with that by the end of the night, I think. 2 ulti hole-in-ones. Meanwhile, I'm playing Oshi, who
like,
just
what
turns
is that?
people's balls into eggs for 1 turn. I love Yoshi. I couldn't say no, you know? Can never. But yeah, after the stream, Ash, because obviously we'd only played like a couple of hours the first time we talked about it. Now we've done a whole stream plus whatever else. How are you feeling about it now that we've played some multiplayer?
I mean, yeah, that's where it's going to be most fun, I think, for most people. You know, especially if you're able to talk to them as well and hear their reactions when you suddenly drop your ulti and their ball goes flying off the green, which happened to me as well. So it wasn't just me doing it to other people, but I know I timed it strategically on the par 3s as soon as everybody had taken their shots. Just wait and hit it, and then. My character Bowser Jr. had a smoke screen on top, so
it's the worst.
Nobody could see no one could see where the pin was after it dropped.
Literally the worst.
Genius strategizing by me. But yeah, it's a good time. I mean, good maps for the most part. Except they just tempt you to take that super risky shot. Think you can get past that tree, and you can't. Somehow I ended up on the side of a castle. With only 1 entry, so I had to go all the way around the side to get back to the hole, and then still came pretty close to winning that round. I'm pretty sure. So yeah, it's fine. It's fun. Yeah, obviously we mostly played like just regular golf with the ultimates going as well, but then we tried the speed mode for the last time. Which was a interesting twist on it, where obviously you're trying to do it as fast as possible in as few strokes as possible, with the time penalty for however many strokes over par you get, or over 1 shot, I guess.
It gets confusing.
It does, but the only thing that matters is I won. So
You would say that, wouldn't you?
yeah.
Got
to take them when you can.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I didn't go too well, but that's fine. I did enjoy playing the multiplayer, and as we discussed the first time, it's like it's mechanic wise, it's a solid Mario Golf game. Like, it's a solid golf game. There's just nothing in the game that makes it particularly stand out and be that next level must buy Mario Golf games. It just feels like a solid Mario Golf game. But when you play multiplayer, a lot of the aspects of the game just come together a lot better and becomes a much more enjoyable or horrible experience if you're super impatient like me and just like the amount of times I'd be like have already taken 2 shots or something like that, and Ash is still on his first shot because he's like pro player spending 10 minutes lining up a shot, and I'm like, fucking hit the ball.
He's doing the math.
Yeah.
He's doing the math. He's making sure it checks out. He's calculating
figuring out
angle
how
off
to
the
putt it
birch.
properly.
I'm fucking Happy Gilmore over here. I'm just whacking bowls, It's whacking balls as hard as I
Indeed,
can.
get a hold of that one.
I'm surprised you haven't got some FOMO yet, Kieran, to be completely honest.
I don't have FOMO
For
at all
golf?
for this. Golf is something that just doesn't get me going. Doesn't get those FOMO juices flowing. You know, it's just
Doesn't get your
not this
6.2 inch switch up.
Wow.
Is it
He's so
adjustable
proud.
at
He's so
least?
proud of that. You can tell. Like he's so he's fucking
just-
riveted
it's
with what he just said. That's a
Doesn't get it out of the dock.
Wow,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. I mean, probably should leave it there. All right. That'll do it for this week's episode of Arcade Couch. Let us know any comments, questions, or concerns,
Complaints.
complaints you have about this week's
Complaints against
Yeah,
Ashley as a human being.
about this week's episode. You can tweet at Ashley Hobley on Twitter. You can join our Discord by heading to explosionnetwork.com/Discord. And if you would like to donate as little as $1 or more, or buy a t-shirt, explosionnetwork.com/support us. It's all there. You can find all the links, doobly doos, hit away, help out, support the network, support the show. Do what you need to do. Until next week, same time, same couch. Goodbye. Hey, don't forget you can subscribe to the show wherever you're currently listening, and you can drop a review if you can. Find more great shows like this and more content over at explosionnetwork.com. And please consider supporting us for as little as $1 over on our Ko-fi page by heading to explosionnetwork.com/support. Thanks for listening.